Alright, welcome back to the channel. Warhammer Man back in the studio, and we've got our new changes. The Balance Dataslate is here with yesterday's points increases and in some cases decreases, as well as this Balance Dataslate, and then of course the new way command points are dealt with and some of the other changes to secondary objectives, etc. We're going to see a big shake-up in the meta. Let's take a look at who's going to be affected and how. That being said, if you enjoyed today's content, make sure to subscribe for daily videos on Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team, Necromunda, Age of Sigmar, warcry, and of course, some Horus Heresy, everything from reactions, reviews, news, painting, modeling, conversion, tutorials. Massive changes rock Warhammer 40,000 match play in the latest Balanced Dataslate. Warhammer 40,000 enters the second half of 2022, guns blazing, kicking off the new season with the Grand Tournament Mission Pack, free points updates, and now the latest Balanced Dataslate, heralding significant changes for casual and competitive players alike. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment, of course. These changes aren't limited to the major movers and shakers of the tournament scene, and we're going to look at some of the most impactful changes right here. Better yet, the Warhammer 40,000 team's Robin Curtis is on hand to give these thoughts and about the process and intent behind these updates. 2022 continues to be an exciting year for the balance of Warhammer 40,000 in the match play scene. We've had several months to see the impact that the previous Balanced Dataslate brought about and introduce new adjustments with the latest update to rein in a handful of overperforming factions further, while giving a few underperforming factions a healthy boost. Tournament leaders. Tyranids and Eldari have certainly been dominating the battlefields of the tournament scene over recent weeks. So we've made a few updates to reduce the oppressiveness of these factions and level the playing field without invalidating any player's collection of miniatures. Likewise, the Harlequins' luck might have finally run out. They too have continued to outperform, and so further tweaks are being introduced to rein in their power. Firstly, Eldari from a far-flung craft world can no longer combine the Hail of Doom attribute with another option from the list. The ability to automatically wound targets with deadly shuriken weapons proved a touch too strong overall when combined with powerful stealth capabilities, cover ignoring skills, or other attribute options. Likewise, two stratagems have been adjusted to pare back the Eldari's ability to avoid return fire while their supernal reflexes. Matchless agility now allows the unit to re-roll their battle focus roll instead of gaining an automatic 6 of movement, while Fire and Fade becomes a one-use only, affecting Asuryani, Ynnari, and Harlequin units alike. Speaking of Harlequins, Segras jesters now need to truly push their luck to see the return from their patron's favor. The initial stock of luck rerolls based on the battle size are reduced to 0, meaning rerolls can only be earned by making a Luck of the Laughing God roll. The light and dark Slittaz characterizations have also been tweaked. The former now only protects from incoming fire beyond 18, while the latter inflicts mortal wounds on attackers rather than letting the slain Harlequins strike back at their assailants with their deadly weapons. Lastly, for the major tournament leaders, Tyranids must now pick the High Fleet adaptation when building their army list like all other factions. Rather than being able to swap out the adaptive imperative at the start of each battle, Hive Tyrants included in your army must also now assert full control over your swarms as your warlord, and you can only receive the benefit of the synaptic imperatives while your warlord remains on the battlefield. So shoot the big ones. Resurgent Threats. Meanwhile, we took steps to improve the Necrons, Orcs, and Astro Militarum. Each of these factions have faced challenging times of late, as well as relaxing several restrictions previously introduced to the Adeptus Mechanicus, effectively giving them a boost on the battlefields of the 41st millennium as well. Necrons continue to see more of their units given the core keyword, this time adding canoptic spiders and every single vehicle. The major change properly reflects the control overlords exert over their risen legions, allowing will be done, and other powerful abilities to extend to a vast majority of your units on the battlefield. In addition, the Necron's command protocols now affect every model on the board rather than just those near a friendly character, and don't require a noble to work. Any character will do. Finally, whichever protocol you don't assign a specific turn now affects your army for the entire battle. In addition, in your normal command protocol abilities, better yet, you can select which of these two directives to employ at the start of each turn. And if your dynasty allows both to be active at the same time, you get the benefits of both directives all game. The Astro Militarum get their first taste of the Armor of Contempt rule, introducing in the last balance sheet, with all their vehicles now receiving the ground-breaking defensive ability The Monrus tanks keep their boosting save characteristics, meaning they're even tougher nut to crack. Orcs see a slight adjustment to their restrictions on many of the Speed Freaks units, such as the Shock Jump Dragsta or Mega Scrap Jet, now allowing up to 3 of each model rather than a single unit. The Wa also taps into more of the Greenskin's latest power than before, granting an extra point of strength and an invulnerable save for both turns. Finally, the Adeptus Mechanicus have a number of their early restrictions rolled back in light of the changing competitive landscape. The Iron Strider Ballistari and Sidonian Dragoons regaining the core keyword. Several previously limited stratagems like acquisitions at all costs and clandestine infiltration have had their usage limitations removed, while others increase command point costs revert to their initial levels. Alright, so some big changes right here. Sounds like, honestly, Games Workshop basically did what I said. Literally my recommendation or suggestion or input was basically a lot of the stuff that they just changed. So, I can't really disagree with it. Harlequins, they literally did what I said, got rid of the initial pool of dice every turn and just made you roll for it. Quite a few of the changes are similar. They rolled back the restrictions on a lot of the armies that were already restricted recently that were no longer outperforming, like Admech and Orcs. They also did exactly what I said about the buggy rule. Instead of making it one single unit up to 3 models, now you can have 3 units of 1, which again is exactly what I said they should do. So got to give it to Games Workshop overall for doing basically what I thought, not that I'm some all-knowing person, but the fact that we were on the same level makes a lot of sense as to like the balance and maybe them like overreaching. Well, definitely them overreaching. So that being said, Armor of Contempt, a lot of these rules obviously are already the old rules that have been in effect, but they're just rehashed here in the data slate as well. Armor of Contempt, each time an attack is allocated to an Astro Militarum vehicle, Adeptus Astartes, Sanctic Astartes, Heretic Astartes, or Adeptus Sororitas model, worsen the armor penetration characteristic of the attack by 1. Alright, so we see Astro Militarum vehicles have been added to the list. So that's huge. This rule does not apply to any of the following: models equipped with a Storm Shield, a Relic Shield, or a Combat Shield, or a Relic that replaces one of these shields. Models with either their Sacrisant Shield or Force Shielding ability, Celestian, Sacrisants, and Nemesis Dread Knight units. Models that are under the effects of any rule that worsens or reduces the armor penetration characteristic of an attack. So you can't stack anything with Armor of Contempt, obviously, and carrying a shield makes you lose the ability, basically. Aircraft, when mustering your army for a match play game, it cannot include more than 1 aircraft model if you're playing combat patrol or incursion size games, or more than 2 aircraft models if you're playing a strike force size game, or more than 3 aircraft models if you're playing an onslaught size game. So again, no real change here. 1 aircraft in 500 and 1,000 point games, 2 aircraft in 2,000 point games, and 3 aircraft max in anything bigger than 2,000. Indirect fire weapons. An indirect fire weapon is one that can target units that are not visible to the bearer. Mortars, smart missile systems, impaler cannons, etc. If such a weapon targets a unit that is not visible, i.e. no model in the target unit is visible to the firing unit when selected as a target, then each time an attack is made with this weapon against that target this phase, worsen the ballistic skill characteristic of the attack by 1 and add 1 to the armor penetration, armor saving throws against the attacks. So basically, your -1 ballistic skill and 1 point of armor penetration goes away if you can't see your target with indirect. So again, no changes there. Astro Militarum and indirect fire weapons. Attacks made with indirect fire weapons by the Astro Militarum models are unaffected by any of the indirect fire weapon rules presented above. So Astro Militarum does not suffer that penalty. No changes. Bodyguard Abilities. Change the end of the Bodyguard ability from the enemy model's unit cannot target the character unit with ranged attacks. 2. That character unit can use the Lookout Serve rule even if the unit containing fewer than 3 models. So again, no changes here. If the unit's Bodyguard ability only affects specific type of character unit, the updated version of the unit's Bodyguard ability still only applies to that type of character unit. Crypto Thrall's protection ability only against Cryptek units, and so the new form of this ability also only applies to Cryptek units. So if you can, if you're a Tyrant Guard or a Cryptek or something like that, you can only protect a Hive Tyrant or a Cryptek, or I'm sorry, oh my gosh, I can't think of what they're called all of a sudden. Yeah, Cryptek, that's it. The Crypto Thralls protect the Cryptek. And this just basically says all of these abilities that have like different names other than Bodyguard still work the same way. So, and then for Hive Tyrants within range of the Guardian Organism ability and Tervagants within range of the Friendly Hive Free Termagant ability, Wall of Flesh ability gain the benefit of Lookout Sir, even though they are characters with a wound characteristic greater than 9. Note that the Wall of Flesh ability still requires a unit of 15 or more Termagants to apply, even though other Bodyguard abilities apply with fewer than 3 models. So it sounds like they're changing the Tervagon ability where it can't be targeted to just Lookout Sir if you have the 15 models still. So they're just basically making that ability from can't be targeted, just like they did with the Hive Tyrants and the other special abilities, to essentially just now you just hurt the unit that's stopping it until you get below 15, and then you can target it. So just basically adding the Tervagon to that ability. Adeptus Sororitas. Change the first bullet point on the gaining miracle dice section of the Acts of Faith ability to read. At the start of each turn, you gain 1 miracle dice. So that is the current existing change. Now you get 1 on each player turn instead of just battle round. Change the second bullet point on the Stoic Endurance Order of the Valorous Heart conviction to read. Each time an attack is made against a unit with this conviction, the attack's wound roll cannot be rerolled. Previously, they subtracted 1 from armored penetration, but now obviously everybody has Armor of Contempt, so you can't stack Armor of Contempt, so they got rid of the inherent Armor of Contempt that they already had because they have the new Armor of Contempt, and then now you can't reroll. So that's actually really good. You can't reroll wounds against them. Very strong. Astro Militarum. Add the following to the detachment ability of an Astro Militarum detachment. Hammer of the Emperor. If every unit from your army has the Astro Militarum keyword excluding agents of the Imperium and unaligned units, and every regiment unit in your army is drawn from the same regiment, then each time an Astro Militarum model from your army makes a ranged attack, an unmodified hit roll of 6 always wounds the target. Designer's notes. Militarum Tempestus units will benefit from this rule if they are included in an army alongside other Astro Militarum units, Cadians, Catechins, etc., but if they are from a Tempestus Science regiment, see Psychic Awakening the Greater Good, they must all be from the same Tempestus Science regiment in order to gain this rule. So, basically, if you have a big force and you add Militarum Tempestus to it, or Scions, they gain this ability also. But if you have a Scion army, you cannot take multiple different, I can't think of the name, regiments, to get like their bonuses, multiple different bonuses in the same army. They have to all be from the same regiment, which makes sense. So you can mix them with other Astro Militarum, but you can't have a mixed army of Tempestus Scions. Change to the save characteristic of Astro Militarum Leman Russ models and Astro Militarum Titanic models to 2+. So all Leman Russes and all Titanic gain a 2+ armor save instead of previously they had 3+. When using a tank order ability of a regiment tank commander model, you can select 1 friendly regiment vehicle unit, excluding Titanic units, within 6 of this tank commander model instead of selecting a regiment Leman Russ unit. So now you can use your tank commanders to command any of your vehicles excluding Titanic, not just Leman Russes. Each time a regiment unit with the Voice of Command ability issues a following order to a regiment infantry unit, the same order can be issued to 1 or more other friendly regiment infantry units, excluding officer units, that are within 6 inches of the unit the order was originally issued to. Take aim, first rank, second rank fire, bring it down, forwards for the Emperor, get back in the fight, and fix bayonets. So now you issue it to 1 unit within 6 inches, and then you automatically get to issue it to a second unit within 6 inches. Just making it slightly better, or twice as good. Adeptus Custodes. Change the third bullet point on the detachment abilities of the Adeptus Custodes detachment to read. Troops units in your Adeptus Custodes detachment gain the objective secured ability. So all troops are objective secured, which means all the other stuff is not. So obviously they did not reverse any of that, unfortunately. Add the following to the esteemed amalgam Emperor's Auspics and Martial Discretion stratagems. You can only use this stratagem once. So again, we saw that was a nerf. They didn't roll it back. Kind of surprising because Custodes have sort of been like underperforming since the most recent nerfs. And then they also got like some points changes that are not beneficial to them. So it seems like they kind of got pushed back and made a little worse again. Change the Adeptus Custodes keyword in all instances of the Arcane Genetic Alchemy and Emperor's Auspex stratagems to read Adeptus Custodes Infantry. So that sucks. Obviously, only infantry can be used for the stratagem. So unfortunately, only bad for Custodes. Nothing new here, but the recent points changes and then the previous ones nerfs as well, all still in effect. So Adeptus Mechanicus changed the first bullet point of the Solar Blessing Lucius Dogma to read: each time an attack with the damage characteristic of 1 is allocated to a model with this dogma, unless the model is receiving the benefits of light cover, add 1 to the armor saving throw made against that attack. So basically, you get the +1 for cover even if you're not in cover. But if you are in cover, you don't get a second +1. Change the last sentence of the Enriched Rounds stratagem to read: an unmodified successful hit roll of 5+ automatically wounds the target. And then we'll see, obviously, that all of the previous nerfs that we saw are now gone. So typically you would see the previous stuff that came out listed here as well, and they would just reiterate it, but they have removed those things. So they basically removed the removing of the core keyword on Ironstrider Ballistaries and Stragonian Dragoons, as well as some other stuff that had recently been rolled out. So they basically took back the nerfs, which is, again, exactly what I said they should have done. So got to give it to GW on this one. Drukhari next removed the core keyword from the keyword section of the following datasheet: Talos and Kronos. Change the second bullet point on the Agile Hunter's obsession to read: if a unit with this obsession with the Combat Drugs ability has the Hypex ability, page 89, add 3 to the unit's move characteristics instead of 2. Change the first sentence of the Dark Technomancer's obsession to read: each time a unit with this obsession is selected to shoot, you can choose to enhance any or all of your ranged weapons models in that unit is equipped with. Liquefier guns and twin liquefier guns can never be enhanced. And last bullet point, change the Artisans of Flesh obsession to read: each time an attack is allocated to a model with this obsession, excluding vehicle models, unless that attack has a strength characteristic of 8 or more, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of the attack to a minimum of 1. So it sounds like I think Drukhari didn't get anything, good or bad. I think they just left it alone. So I think the nerfs are all still in effect for them. So next is Asuryani. So the next 3 I actually have first-hand experience with, so I can probably give you a better idea. But Asuryani, add the following to the Hail of Doom Farflung Craftworld attribute. You cannot select this Farflung Craftworld attribute if you have selected any other Farflung Craftworld attributes, and if you select this Farflung Craftworld attribute, you cannot select a second. So basically, the problem was Hail of Doom, obviously, was too good because you could stack it with other abilities. And the auto 6, if you rolled a 6 to hit, you auto wounded on a 6. And then obviously the Shuriken Catapult benefit was also triggered because you wounded on a 6. So you had basically like ability stacking. So they got rid of your ability to take a second attribute with the Hail of Doom. So previously you would pick 2 of these and kind of like build your own craft world. Now if you take Hail of Doom, you don't get anything else. Change the psychic action described in the Eldritch Storm stratagem to read: Empower Storm, psychic action, warp charge value 5. Any number of Farseer models from your army that have visibility to the center of the marker that you placed can attempt to perform this psychic action. At the start of your next shooting phase, roll 1d6 for each unit within 6 inches of the center of the marker you place. On a 4-up, that unit suffers a d3 mortal wounds, and the marker is then removed. You can only use this stratagem once. So it's still, you pay 3 command points. You still select a point and trigger this in your command phase. And then each Farseer that has sight to the point can now perform this psychic action, which you roll a d6, and on a 4-up, the unit suffers a d3 mortal wounds. So if you still have, let's say for instance, 3 Farseers using this ability, and let's say all 3 of them get their psychic ability off, previously you were rolling a 4-up, and then you were adding 1 to your flat roll for each Farseer that successfully cast a power. So you were getting +2 if 2 Farseers completed the psychic action to whatever you rolled on your mortal wounds, but it's still only triggered on a 4-up and was actually harder to hit character infantry, I believe it was. Now, so the problem with that is that you could basically have a fire roll, like a really good roll, where you basically hit a unit and then you do a large number on your variable dice roll in Mortal Wounds, plus, let's say 3 Farseers use this ability, so you could add +3 to that, so it could just do a devastating amount of damage, because it was like one roll for the damage or Mortal Wounds, and one roll to see if they went off for each unit. Now it sounds like each Farseer performs the action, and assuming it goes off, which likely it will, because it's very easy to obviously do Warp Charge 5 action. If it goes off, you roll a d6 for each unit within 6 inches of the center of the marker you placed. On a 4 up, that unit suffers a d3 mortal wounds, and the marker is then removed. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is... Man, I wish they had clarified this just a little bit, because it sounds like what happens now is that each Farseer now rolls the d6 for each unit. And on a 4 up, each unit is hit by each Farseer's roll on the Eldritch Storm, which is existing. And then that unit takes a d3 mortal wounds. So again, if 3 Farseers use this ability, the minimum you're going to do, is 0, obviously, if you roll no 4 ups. On average, you're going to roll, if you have 3 Farseers do the ability, you're going to roll 1 or 2 hit, and then you're going to roll a d3 mortal wounds for each. And then if all 3 of your Farseers were successful on a 4 up, you would potentially do between 3 and 9 mortal wounds. So, I don't know. This is a tough one. I have to really think about this right here, but it sounds like it got substantially worse and still costs 3 command points, and it's once per game. So I think it was probably just too strong, and that's what they're getting at. But in all reality, part of why it was so good is because it was basically like an old school blast template, and nothing else gets those. So people are incentivized, like with cover rules and like deployment and everything, to essentially just like pack everything into a big bubble. So they basically created a problem, and then the Eldritch Storm was too good at hurting those units, so now they've kind of rolled it back. That's what it seems like. Have to further look into this one and hopefully get some kind of clarification, but that's what it sounds like. Change the second sentence of the matchless agility stratagem to read: use this stratagem in your shooting phase after rolling a d6 to determine how far Austriani unit from your army moves when it makes a battle focus roll. Re-roll that d6. So instead of getting an auto 6 and be able to count on that, you could flub a die roll, and then use this stratagem and then flub it again, so there's still some chance to it. Makes sense. It was pretty strong. I'm not sure it was like amazing, but I don't think it's going to like hurt the game that much either, this change. Add the following to the fire and fade stratagem. You can only use this stratagem once. Previously, you could use that fire and fade ability as many times as you wanted. Obviously, it was a stratagem, so you had to pay. Now it is restricted to once per game. Space Marine change the second bullet point on the Forged in Battle Salamander's Chapter tactic to read: each time an attack is made against a unit with this tactic, the attack's wound roll cannot be re-rolled. So again, same as the Sororitas change that we saw earlier. Before, they would previously just get -1 to the AP of stuff that hit them. Now all Space Marines get that. So they basically got rid of that part of the roll, and now it is you cannot re-roll wound rolls. So right in line with what they did for the Sisters of Battle. I like that. It's all about consistency. Chaos Space Marines change the second bullet point in the Iron Within, Iron Without, Iron Warriors Legion trait to read: each time an attack is made against a unit with this trait, the attack's wound roll cannot be re-rolled. Death Guard, add the following bullet points to the attachment abilities of the Death Guard detachments: Blight Lord Terminators and Death Shroud Terminators units in the Death Guard detachment gain the objective secured ability. So very strong. Obviously, all the Terminators are objective secured for Death Guard. Tyranids are next. So obviously they got hit really hard with the points increases. So add the following to the Rare Organism detachment ability: if your army contains 1 or more Hive Tyrant models, one of them must be selected as your warlord. That makes sense. Of course, a Hive Tyrant is going to be leading your army. I like that they didn't say you can't have 2 now, but let's be real, it's very difficult now. You have to give up a lot of command points to take that second one. So we're probably going to see less Hive Tyrants, especially with the points increases. And then replace the first paragraph of the Synaptic Imperative ability with: if every unit from your army has the Hive Tendril keyword, excluding unaligned units, and each of these units, excluding living artillery units, is from the same Hive fleet, then while your warlord is on the battlefield, Synapse units from your army have a synaptic imperative ability, depending on which one is currently active for your army. Okay, so basically, if your Hive Tyrant dies, you lose your synaptic imperatives for the entire game. While you're Warlord. So it's not even you have to kill both your Hive Tyrants if you have two. It's literally if you kill the Warlord, you lose all synaptic imperatives for the end of the game. So, and it doesn't even, it has to be on the battlefield, so you can't even start with your Hive Tyrant like in Deep Strike and have your use of the synaptic imperative on the first turn. You wouldn't even get one on the first turn. You would have to wait until he shows up. And then again, obviously, if he dies, you lose it, or if he flies off the board for anything. So, very restrictive. Now, there's going to be a huge priority to kill your Hive Tyrant. So, which is not really that big of a deal, because most of the time you can basically just post them up behind a big block of cover and, stop them from being shot. And indirect fire is not going to be like killing off your Hive Tyrant. So, is that really that big of a change? Probably later on turns it is. By like third or fourth turn, maybe when that Warlord is dead. But you're probably going to have to play a little more cagey with your Hive Tyrant now, with your Warlord, because you don't want him to die, obviously, and lose those synaptic imperatives before you really get to use them. So that's pretty big. When playing a match play game, players cannot swap out the adaptive element of their Hive Fleet adaptation at the start of the battle for determining who has the first turn. If they wish to do so, they must instead be done during the muster army step and player selection written on their army roster. So now if you're playing match play, you don't get that Hive Fleet adaptation right there at the table. You make it ahead of time. Whatever your opponent is, if they're Tau, you can't switch to the no overrides, adaptive, etc. So it's less customizable at the table, but still the same customizable ahead of time. The truth is about Eldar and Tyranids, Eldar points, basically just everything went up by like 5 or 10 points. I think it was crazy because a lot of the stuff that went up in points, you don't even see people taking. Like, no one's taking an Avatar, so why did the points go up by 10? No one is taking a bunch of the Phoenix Lords, and yet the points went up. There's a ton of units that are just mediocre in the Codex that went up in points for Eldar. And then obviously Harlequins just got hit pretty bad here. It's been a long time since Harlequins were competitive, basically since the last points changes. So losing all their dice rolls and then keeping all the points changes, they're no good now. They're terrible. And then changing the Sedeth for Dark, so you don't actually even get the fight back now. You just do some mortal wounds. Harlequins are in a rough place. I'm not going to lie. They basically are terrible now. And then as far as Tyranids saw basically a 10 to 15% increase to the army. So they're basically losing in a 2,000 point army. They're losing like roughly 200 to 300 points. That's pretty rough. So you're basically going to lose like 1 to 2 big units. And then also now if somebody kills your Hive Tyrant, it can really hurt you. I think Tyranids are still going to be okay. They'll still be fun and competitive. There's definitely going to be some bad vibes for Tyranid players just because it's going to feel like you lost a ton, but really you probably just had too much to begin with. So in my opinion, it seems like they rolled back Tyranids to probably where they should be. It's going to suck if you're used to playing Tyranids and used to getting all these units and used to all this cool stuff, but the truth is they're probably pretty well balanced now, I would say. And Eldar, honestly, I watch a lot of tournament scenes. I watch a lot of games. Obviously, Eldar really haven't been doing that great. I mean, they haven't been like crushing the meta or anything like that. So between the points changes and the other like changes here, I think they're going to be probably right in line with where they should be. They're still extremely fragile, and now they got rid of some of their like KG moves as well. So they're probably just going to die a lot quicker. And stuff like Swooping Hawks and Warp Spiders and stuff like that basically just went up like 10 points across the board. Dire Avengers went up a point apiece. So again, when it's all said and done, you could see some, again, Eldar's probably getting one less like decent unit in their army. So Tau is next. Change the second bullet point for the Monka ability to read. Each time a model in this unit makes a range attack that targets the closest eligible enemy unit within the range shown in the table below. Reroll wound rolls of 1. Change the first bullet point of the devastating Counter-Strike Farsight Enclave tenet to read. Each time a model with this tenet makes a ranged attack, the target's unit within 9 inches, the target is treated as having a marker-like token. Remove the core keyword from the keyword section of the broadside battlesuit dataslate. Add the following to the repulsor impact field photon grenade stratagem. The charge roll modifier included via this stratagem is not cumulative with other negative modifiers to unit's charge roll. So you can -2 the charge. You can't stack it to get like -4 or more. Broadside still lost core. All the suits went up by like 10 points. I'm not sure why they had to nerf the Farsight Enclave thing. I don't think there's that many Farsight Enclave players out there, and I've never seen one do well. So that is sort of strange. But apparently that was overpowered. Tau in general, just, basically you're not going to be seeing Stormsurges anymore because they went up from 330 to 400 points. So they went up 70 points. And you're going to see a lot less battle suits because, commanders, broadsides, and crisis suits and bodyguards all went up by like 10 points on the base suit. So you're just not going to get nearly as many. If you were taking like 12 suits before, or 20 suits before, now you're losing 120 to 200 points out of your army. So big changes. Necrons, change the command protocol's ability as follows. Replace the noble keyword in all instances with Necron characters. Replace the last sentence of the penultimate paragraph with, until the assigned command protocol stops being active, while a unit with this eligible to benefit from this ability is on the battlefield, that unit benefits from the selective directive. Replace the last paragraph with, in addition, if all units from your army are from the same dynasty, excluding dynastic agent, Catan Shard, and unaligned units, select one command protocol that has not been assigned to the battle round. There will typically only be one. That command protocol is active in every battle round in addition to the one assigned to that battle round. Select which directive your units with this will benefit from at the start of each battle round. Note that if the additional command protocol is the one described in your dynasty's code, that means both of its directives apply to all units with this ability in your army in every battle round, in addition to the protocol assigned to that battle round. The available command protocols are shown below. So it sounds like basically you get, if you take your base protocol, it's always active. Then you pick one that is also always active. Then you have one that's active for each turn. So seriously, like stacking these command protocols. Designer note, some rules differ from the active command protocol. In the instance, these rules refer to all command protocols that are active for your army. And then finally, add the core keyword to the keyword section of the following datasheet. Canoptic Arcanthrites, see Imperial Armor Compendium, Canoptic Reanimator, Canoptic Spiders, Canoptic Wraiths, Flayed Ones, Locust Destroyers, Locust Heavy Destroyers, Ophidian Destroyers, Scorpic Destroyers, Triarch Praetorians, all Necron vehicle datasheets. So everything is core, like in a Necron army now. I mean, at this point in time, the Necrons have gotten points decreases, double buffs, triple buffs, everything's core. I mean, if I ever hear another Necron player complain again, they're like, I don't even know. They'll never be happy, which is probably true. But at this point in time, you cannot complain about Necrons. They literally have gotten so many buffs, one after another, and points decreases. I mean, come on. Necrons were already showing up on, top 8 tables, so I don't think they were in that bad of a position to be with, but now they're definitely good. Orcs. When mustering an Orc army, it cannot include more than 3 of each of the following models. Boomdaka Snazwagon, Custom Boosta Blasta, Megatrek Scrapjet, Rocket Truck Squig Buggies, Shock Drunk Dragstas. So again, there's a great change by Games Workshop. It's no longer restricted to one unit. With a maximum of 3, you can now take 3 individual units of 1 again, which is what people were doing to begin with. I think that is absolutely great, as Orcs really weren't that good, and then they got nerfed, and then it made them not good at all. I shouldn't say not good at all, because they were still doing okay in tournament scenes, but never really busting through like the top 3. Change the stage 1 and 2 effects of the WA to read. Stage 1, Call to WA. Orcs core and Orcs character units from your army are eligible to declare charge even if they advance this turn. Add 1 to the strength and attacks characteristic of Orc models from your army. Orc models from your army have a 5-up invulnerable save. So that's really good. Your whole army now, all core and characters, now have a 5-up invulnerable save during the initial stage 1 of the WA, and then they get the +1 strength, +1 attack, and can advance and charge. So very good ability, obviously. And then on the second turn of the WA, Stage 2, get stuck in, add 1 to the strength and attacks characteristics of the orcs, and orc models from your army have a 6-up and vulnerable save. So I like it. It's perfect. So when they're fully charged up on the initial WA, they can advance and charge. The second turn of the WA, they lose that. On both turns of the WA, they get +1 strength and attacks that's for all your units. So it says Orcs core and Orcs character units from your army are eligible to declare a charge. So everything in your army gets +1 strength and +1 attacks, and then everything from your army gets a 5-up save on the initial WA turn, and then a 6-up save on the second WA turn. So it basically makes your Orcs much more survivable. That's very strong. I like that. That's good. That's going to be really nice. Harlequins are next. Ignore the table listed in the Luck of the Laughing God ability. Instead, at the start of the battle round, you gain 0 luck rerolls regardless of battle size. You can only gain luck rerolls by making a Luck of the Laughing God roll. So previously you got a pool of dice based on the size of your game, and you started with that plus however many you gambled on. Now you get none, and then you just straight up gamble, which again, that was what I said they should do, so I got to agree with them that that is the right decision. Change the Mirror Architect pivotal role to read. In your command phase, select one friendly Slittaz core unit within 9 inches until the start of your next command phase. Each time an enemy unit is selected to shoot, when measuring the range to any model in that unit, it is considered to be additional 6 inches away from the shooting model. So previously this was an aura that just hit everything, and then in the last revisions they made it so it's just one unit, and obviously that's still the case. Change the favor of Segarath Warlord trait to read once per turn when you make a melee hit roll, a melee wound roll, or saving throw for your Warlord. After making that roll, you can treat the result as an unmodified roll of 6. Previously, this was not just melee, it was just in general, and people were using it to stack with the relic, what was it, the relic shuriken cannon? To basically use the auto 6 hit roll to then have exploding 6s. And now they have gotten rid of that because it's only in melee. And again, that was from the previous update. Change the first bullet point of the light Slittaz characterization to read. Each time an attack is made against a unit with this characterization, if the attack model is more than 18 inches away, an unmodified hit roll of 1, 2, or 3, the attack fails, irrespective of any abilities that the weapon or the model making the attack may have. So previously it was 12 inches away, now it's 18 inches away. So if you get within 18, now you can avoid that 1, 2, or 3 auto missing. And then next we have changed the first bullet point of the dark Slittaz characterization to read. Each time a model with this characterization is destroyed by a melee attack, roll a d6. On a 4-up, after the attacking model's unit has finished making its attacks, it suffers 1 mortal wound. A unit can suffer a maximum of 6 mortal wounds per phase as a result of this ability. So previously they all got to fight on death, which is exponentially better than a 50% chance to do a single mortal wound with a max of 6. So huge nerf. Harlequins at this point in time, I hate to say it, they're completely dead. I mean, you could still have some play with them. They're still okay on the battlefield, but you're not going to be winning anything but like casual to semi-competitive games. They are definitely been dethroned completely. If they were going to do this, they should have rolled back like half of the points changes. So instead of things going up, like the boats going up by like, what was it? I think 40 points initially. I can't even remember. It was like from 80 to 120. Man, I really can't remember off the top of my head. But basically, they should just be like, okay, instead of this going up by 40 points, it went up by 20, and then we're rolling all this stuff out. So, in my opinion, Eldar took a big hit on this. Tyranids took by far the biggest hit on this. Tau also took a pretty big hit on this. And then basically anything with Armor of Contempt has been overall boosted. Guard has gotten seriously boosted. All of the bad stuff basically that happened to Adeptus Mechanicus and Orcs got rolled back. And then on top of all that, Custodes basically got no benefits but just went up by a couple of points. And then Necrons just got massive buffs, and Orcs did pretty good as well. So that is everything. Going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Obviously, we'll see how the meta flushes out. We've seen 3 massive changes, with all 3 of the publications that recently came out, between the Balance Dataslate, between the points, and between the changes in the new season. the meta is completely shaken up. What you were doing before is not going to work in the same way. You're either going to get massive boosts or massive nerfs. But the fact of the matter is it's going to completely change the game. No one knows where it's going to settle, obviously, including Games Workshop. So we will stay, in touch over the next couple of months with what's going on in the meta and see how tournaments are shifting and who is starting to show up. But obviously, we're going to see Eldar, Tau, and Tyranids fall off from the top some. I think they'll still be competitive. You may just have to adjust your list, and what you take and how you use it. But the truth is, Necron's got some massive buffs here. Orcs got, the rollbacks and also some pretty decent stuff. And then, in general, Space Marines are in a pretty good space right now. So I think it's just a matter of time before we see Space Marines start winning some stuff because they are getting pretty good. So I'll go ahead and wrap it up there. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like and subscribe. Really helps out the channel, and it's obviously absolutely free. But that's it for today. If you enjoy Warhammer 40,000 daily content or Age of Sigmar, warcry, Horus Heresy, Kill Team, any of the Games Workshop games, make sure to like and subscribe. We do all kinds of reactions, reviews, news, painting, modeling, and conversion tutorials. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.